Thank you for joining me on the Get What You Want podcast, where getting what you want isn't always what you think it is. My wish for you is that this show will create an awareness within yourself of what you really want and the possibility of getting it. Let's go create. My guest today is Karena Kilcoyne. Karena is a Midwesterner who packed her bags, kept her values, and moved to the Sunshine State. Growing up, she dreamed of being a prolific writer. Instead, she graduated from Case Western Reserve School of Law. For years, she worked as a criminal defense attorney, focusing on white-collar crimes. She also worked as an in-house counsel for a $6 billion publicly traded company. She is currently writing her memoir, Chasing Birds, a journey of resilience, grace, and love, an honest, inspirational account of the turbulent and abusive childhood that had plagued her for decades, even through her professional and personal success. Now on the other side of healing, she has left the law and is guiding others through the flood of emotions, holding them back from embracing a full life. Her blog, Carousing, is a place where she shares musings from her smart, sexy, spiritual exploration of life. There she offers a deep dive into self-betterment techniques, innovative wellness trends, vetted travel recommendations, and more. Healed and happy, Karena has learned to have fun. Welcome, Karena.
Oh, thanks, Shirley. I'm so happy to be here. I love your show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have you. I love your background and your love for color, and it's just beautiful. So I'm excited to talk today. I know that you've been through a lot and you are well educated, and now you've stepped out of that. And so I just want you to tell me a little bit kind of about that journey from where you were to where you are right now.
I'd love to. So as you said, right now I do have a lifestyle blog, carousing.com, and I've always wanted to be a writer. And so I did start that journey a few years ago, but it took me a long time to get there. You know, and I know that you talk about, and you love to talk about how to get what you want. And the truth was that for so many years, I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know how to get there, and I didn't know how to make it happen, and I didn't trust myself enough. And a lot of that stems from my journey, which began, like for many of us, with wounds that I suffered as a child. And I had a very tumultuous childhood. My parents had a very passionate and violent relationship between the two of them. And there was a lot of abandonment going on with regard to the children. I was the oldest. I had 3 younger siblings. By the time I was 12, my father is no longer in the picture. And my mother, now having gone through a lot of therapy myself and done a lot of learning and reading, I would say that my mother probably had some sort of an undiagnosed mental condition, some kind of bipolar, or at a minimum, probably a severe case of depression. So as the oldest, at 12 years old, I was taking care of her and my 3 siblings for weeks at a time when she couldn't get out of bed. I would grocery shop, cook, things like that. And I came from a lot of scarcity. There's a lot of poverty. We didn't have much after my father left. And so I think that with a lot of that scarcity and that abandonment, it set me up with this psychological, emotional complexity that I didn't always quite know how to deal with. So I lived years kind of in this scarcity mode of always feeling like I was trying to survive, right? Just to survive felt like something. I
understand that mode for sure.
Right. So I was coming from a lot of that, and my mother and I never had a great relationship because I was filled with so much resentment for having to do what I did for her and my siblings. When I was in my early 20s, she was diagnosed with cancer, and I was the only one left to take care of her. So while I was in law school, I was commuting back and forth to law school, and I was taking care of her. She died tragically when she was only 44, and I was 24. And that right there set me up for something too. I'm sure listeners out there who have had the experience of having had a parent who dies at a young age, there's always something psychologically about you thinking, am I going to get there? Am I going to make it past that age? That was always kind of weighing on me. But when she died, she was again 44, I was 24. I adopted my 9-year-old brother and I raised him.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And it added a lot to my plate, of course. Professionally, I finished law school. I decided to go practice law instead of writing. I felt like I had to do that to provide. And so through that process, though, of taking care of my brother for all those years and practicing law, I was still in that mode of feeling like I was coming from lack and scarcity. And I couldn't quite wrap my head around or my heart around how to come from a place where I felt full and happy and full of gratitude, because really what I was full of were these suppressed emotions, shame and anger and resentment for everything I had to have done for my mother. And so I think that for me, it didn't really come full circle. And I really didn't truly feel my emotional transparency and start my healing journey until a handful of years ago, actually. So, regardless of my professional success or the fact that I was married, there was still something missing for me. I was still missing this grasp on this real sense of who I was and what I really wanted in the world and how I was going to be happy. And it all came a handful of years ago when my dear dog, Finn, was only 7,
Mm.
and he was diagnosed with cancer. And I didn't understand at the time, I truly didn't, that Finn had become my emotional support dog. I didn't get him for that reason. I didn't train him to do that. But in all the moments when I felt panicked or I couldn't breathe or I didn't understand what was happening, I was having this storm of emotional, energetic shifts happening in me, he would console me, lay on top of me. It was just amazing what he did for me. And really, looking back on it, he provided me two powerful things. And that was this sense of happiness and playfulness, kind
Mm.
of like a sense of being a child again, which I never really had been, and unconditional love, which I had never really experienced. So when he got so sick, I was devastated. I didn't know what I was going to do. I did everything I possibly could to change to save his life. But what was remarkable about it, and I just still got a chill up my arm for just talking about it, is that he was so sick and dying 20 years almost to the last months of my mom's life. And going through what I was going through with him and reliving, he got a couple of rounds of chemo and reliving some things with him, it just, all these memories and emotions flooded back, stuff I hadn't dealt with or processed fully, grief that I hadn't even let myself feel. And I almost feel like that was the wisdom in his beautiful soul, was that he knew if he left me, which he did 2 months after he was diagnosed, that I couldn't control my grief, that I couldn't hold it in. And I did, and I grieved for him, and I grieved for my mom, for my childhood, and it just opened up this path for me that I knew that I had to go down it. I had to finally go down this path and be
Mm.
honest and heal myself with whatever that took. And it did take several modalities, as we all go through, to figure out what works for us. But that's really what led me to this sense of power and love for myself, that I felt secure enough that I could go and do what I really wanted, which was writing and finally putting down my story in a memoir. But it took a long time, and I think that that's, an important lesson for everybody out there seeking something they want, is it really is a journey.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I feel like and I'm sure you feel like this too, like I've come so far, but there's still so much more to learn and so much to go through.
Hmm.
It's just like learning how to deal with it better as you go along, right? Or learning how to process things. Because it sounds like for like 20 years, you just kind of stuffed it all down because you didn't really want to feel it.
Yes. So there's a lot of that. And I actually, years ago, before this ultimate healing journey began for me, I did go see a therapist. I was
Mhm.
having some panic and some anxiety, and I couldn't sleep at night. It was affecting my work, and I was going to work, not, on my game. And I went to her and I said, I just need you to help me sleep. And she says, well, what's happening? And I tell her, and she says, what it really sounds like to me is you're an emotional stuffer. I said, what does that mean? And she says, well, it's nothing to be ashamed of. She says, but a lot of people, what they do is instead of dealing with the feeling because they feel
Mhm.
like, oh, they can't right then, or they're in a survival mode, they push the feeling down and they think, oh, it'll go away. I don't want to deal with it. I'll lock it away in a little box. And then you continue on your life thinking, oh, I'm going to be great at this. I'm going to be a success. And a lot of people turn to perfectionists, or they
Mhm.
drink, or they do drugs. I mean, there's
Right.
all these outlets, right? For the
Mhm.
pain that you
Yeah.
have for stuffing the emotion. It's an energy and it never goes away until you deal with it, until you
Right.
process it.
And I write about this in my book. If you can imagine a clock, and the hands are 12, 6, 3, and 9. And 6 is where we stuff everything, right? So like if 12 is like enlightenment, 6 is where we just shove everything down. And like you said, on one side you have perfectionism. That would be like, say, at 3 o'clock. And then at 9 o'clock you have drug, alcohol, vices. And both of those people in those situations don't like each other, right? The perfectionists don't like the drug addicts, and the drug addicts don't like the perfectionists. But all that really is managing. They're both managers. They're just doing it differently. So they're just managing so that that stuff never comes back up. But it's always there. And when we file it, if we take whatever issue that we're in right now and we put it in the past, it always shows up in the future, right? So if we shove
Mm-hmm.
it down, it's always going to show up in the future. And I think that people call it the past, but it's not their past until they get rid of it. It goes to the
Right.
past once you get rid of it. So tell me about how, like, maybe some of the techniques that you use, and you probably write about this in your book, like, how do you bring that up and deal with it? Like, what would be something if someone was to come to you and just be like, Karena, I'm feeling you. I listened to this podcast. I heard what you were saying, and I'm there, but I don't know how to get out of that. What would you suggest they start with?
I would say two really powerful things for me that got me out of the gate to begin the process.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I'd say is coming from this place of gratitude. So I felt like for so long that, for me at least, when I was stuffing all those emotions down, it would bring up in me a lot of anger, resentment. Everything seemed like a big deal, like a lot of huffing and puffing over doing this or doing that. There wasn't this real sense of joy because there was so much repressed energy, because every emotion has energy to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that for me, a huge one was really having a good gratitude practice. So even when things really felt really bad for me, and on the days that I would try to bring it out, I would really sit with that and try to find things I was thankful for in my present situation. So trying to find a silver lining in the day that I was in right then, being present and
So
finding that gratitude in something. I also think that it's crucial that you're honest about the emotion. And that's so hard, right?
so hard.
Because so hard. And I think a lot of it is too, for me at least, I shielded the real emotion with anger.
Mm.
So sitting with it and really being honest about what the emotion below the surface is. And for me, being a writer, but I think it works for a lot of people, is
Yes, journaling is huge.
journaling it out. And that really helped me get to a certain point of comfort before I could get to a point where I could speak it, right? I feel like there was a lot of my story that, I swear to you, until I started writing my book and finally had the courage to be that emotionally transparent with my own husband, and come down after a day of writing and say, I have to share this with you. And the words coming out of my mouth magically made that shame and what felt dirty no longer feel dirty.
Yes, that
There's such a
definitely happens.
Yeah, like there's a power in speaking your story and your shame that it does a couple things. It unlocks that box and it lets the energy flow. And for me, it almost made me an observer of my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize when that happens, when you can step back and become the observer, how much compassion you can find for yourself, for that little you who did that, for the 16-year-old who lived through that, for the 30-year-old who whatever slept with the wrong, whatever. It's like there's this compassion that flows out, and I started to realize it may not have all been the way I wanted it, but I did the best I possibly could with what I had.
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling stuck in your relationship? Do you feel you need more? Whether it be more time, attention, security, gifts, intimacy, or companionship, your partner is likely experiencing something similar. Yet both of you are not sure how to fix it. In Shirley Baldwin's best-selling book, Get What You Want From Your Man, she will show you how to get all of this and more. Get What You Want From Your Man is available nationwide through all major bookstores, Amazon.com, and through her website, www.getwhatyouwantguru.com.
So we talk about like stories and our perspectives and that type of thing. And I think when a story is like stuck inside you, it grows, right? We attach feelings and emotions and trauma, and not to say, because I lived a very tumultuous life also, but like not to say that it's not real, it didn't happen, but 97% of our thoughts and our feelings aren't even 100% true. And so we attach all of this stuff. And once we can be aware, which is like my favorite word, but once we can be aware that that's in there, and like you said, like you start to speak it, and when it comes out, it's like, oh wait, why was I hiding that for so long? Or, oh, it just like takes that out, because we're literally stuffing our words. We're literally just like pushing it down as much as we can. And at some point, something has to come out. So once it starts to come out, you feel this freedom and you feel lighter, and really to visualize that, like each thing as you're pulling each brick off of that pile and taking each thing out, it really makes a huge difference. And so I love the way you said that, because I do believe that once you speak it, and writing is a good tool too, if you have no one to speak it to, right? Like, so writing it, once you see it and it comes out, you're like, oh, I can live with that. That's okay. And you're not alone, right? I think also that we think that we're alone in this, and social media and our world today helps us to not feel as alone in things. But I know, even as short as 20 years ago, we didn't have all of that, and we still weren't able to express that. So I really love how you talk about speaking it, because I think that's important for people to realize that they can just speak it, even just out loud with yourself.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And it's such a powerful, it seems on one hand as we're talking about it, it seems so simple. Oh, you speak it. But it's not when you actually have it in you. And I feel like the longer you've compressed, it becomes compressed, and it just, there's so much on top of it. And then you're so right about it, almost becomes hardwired in your circuitry, your story. And then you're thinking, who would I be without that? That was a shift for me too, that it's like sometimes I think that we anchor down in the pain, even if it's subconsciously, and it becomes a part of our identity. And that was a huge shift for me, and figuring out how to get what I really wanted is how to break out of that mode of feeling and I don't mean to discount the word being a survivor, because there's so much power in being a survivor of many things, but in this instance of kind of just that coming from, oh, did I survive it? Am I surviving or am I thriving?
Right. And it's like a victimhood, right?
Yes.
It does serve us in for so many reasons. It can justify who we are. It can justify whatever mistakes we're making. Like, we can use victimhood to just be like, I can be whatever because I went through this. And I think that really just holds people down. And it's hard for me because I feel like I've also come through that. And when you look back, like, we really create whatever we want to create, and we are a part of that. And I think that it's really hard on people. And I think sometimes I have people think that I'm really being harsh when I say, I know that really bad thing happened to you, but you're a part of that creation, right? And you may not have any control over what happens, but you always have control over how you react to it. And it's a skill to learn how to sit in the pain, go through it, be realistic about it, and then work your way through it to the other side. Recently, I've been wanting to tell this story, and my former brother-in-law passed away from COVID, and we had a funeral online, and his son had told this story, and I think it's so relevant right now. And that is, when they were growing up, their dad always talked about bison and how they never waited out a storm. Like, all these animals would go around a storm. So they were in Wyoming at one point on a vacation, and there was a really big storm that came, and they pulled over, and he said, I want you to watch the bison, to his kids. And all the other animals like stop. They hunker down. They stay where they're at, or, or birds will fly around the storm. But the bison just walk straight through the storm. And they get to their destiny quicker and less fearful by doing that, by like walking through the storm. And I thought that was such a wise thing that he taught his kids, because in their mind, it's like, do I hunker down and wait out the storm because our life is just a series of a bunch of storms? Or do I learn how to just like walk through it? And there are times where we have ebb and flow. I think, like thriving and surviving, I do not live a life of survival. Like, nothing in me right now has to survive. But do I still have that mentality that comes up, that default of, yeah, I have it. It comes up for me. And, like making a purchase or doing something that I don't really need to worry about, but I worry about it because it's just kind of been a default thing for me. But I think that, remembering little things like that, like, we can have our moments where we're surviving. Like, it might be a storm that we're surviving through. The door blows open and a bunch of dirt comes in, and you got to like clean it up, or a glass breaks, or, we have like moments where we've got to go through something we really don't like to go through. And then there is the thriving, where we realize that, oh, this is just life. It's just happening all around us. It's beautiful, right? And we can thrive through it, through anything. We can continue to thrive. And so right now we're dealing with this coronavirus in our world. And I think that this is something you could really speak on, is how do we live that thriving through this time? Like, we're going through a really hard time right now. I have really enjoyed it. I have 10 people in my house. My daughter and her husband and 2 babies are here, and, we have our kids, and I've really enjoyed it to an extent, but lately I've been noticing that there are parts that get to me, but I have to keep reminding myself, like, I don't need to survive this. Like, I can just thrive through this and be happy. And we create fun things every single day. So how are you getting through it? And what is your advice to other people who may be really struggling right now? Because I believe the transition out of it is going to be just as stressful and some adjustment periods as it was going into it. So we're not through it yet. So what would your advice be? Because I know that you teach and talk about how to thrive during turbulent times. And right now it's for sure turbulent.
It definitely is. And I think you have a great point too about the after, right? The transition out and the after. I think we are going to find that people are suffering a certain amount of post-traumatic stress. So I think it's important now, while we're still in it, to choose how we're handling it as best as we can, to make those have the awareness and the presence, and to make choices. So I would say a few things about that. The big thing for me in my journey that I've learned is that I'm responsible for my own happiness, right? Number one thing. And so trying to find those silver linings and those happy moments during this it's a practice. And for me, it's happiness has been a practice because, there are some of us who are born with just, sunshine and rainbows coming out of our pockets. But for others, it's a little bit, to your point of how we were raised and what's kind of in there already, and then trying to back it up and redo it. So I would say that for me, understanding that I'm responsible for my own happiness, that I can't wait for someone or something to make it happen. I was thinking the other day, even if Dr. Fauci is standing on the corner handing out COVID-19 vaccines, it's like, it's not going to make you happy unless you let it make you happy. Right?
Exactly.
So once you understand that, that's huge and powerful. And then I go back to my gratitude, my silver linings. That has been so helpful for me. And if you really look at and you try to focus on, and I don't like to listen to the news a ton, but if I do, I always kind of keep an ear out for the happy news, the silver linings, what's been good for the environment. And, talking to my girlfriends or, of like a Zoom happy hour. And it's funny how many of us have realized what we can live without.
Right.
But we used to think all of this was so important and we need to spend money on all of this. And we've realized, no, actually, you know what? I don't really miss that, or I like this better without that. And
now we're like, just get me some toilet paper. Right?
Yes, exactly. Toilet paper and maybe some wine here and there. But so I don't know. I feel like there's been a lot of silver linings in this whole thing if you really look for them.
Oh, for
and
sure.
And then the more you do it, I think the easier it gets. And so for me, my practice is just every day I try to come up with 3 things. And they're not always big, huge, monumental things. They can be silly and funny. Just every day, make them different. Another thing that I've done, I am by nature somebody who can default to routine. Just, little type A kind of stuff. Yeah. So I felt like when this hit and we were all in lockdown, I think a lot of people set up routine because it made them feel like, oh, now I have structure and my day makes sense and all these things are happening. But then that can start to feel so monotonous.
Yes.
And then you become apathetic about your day. So I have really made an effort during this time to turn some routines into rituals. And you probably already do this because you said your favorite word is aware. And it's like one of mine too, presence, awareness. Where am I in this moment? Am I in it? How many times do we take our vitamins or brush our teeth and then walk away and go, did I take my supplements? I can't remember.
Yeah. You're like not even in that moment.
Right. And so I've tried to make up a ritual around something that feels very routine. So an example, I have a fun one for all the dog lovers listening, is I have 2 golden retrievers and I've turned feeding them into a ritual where I have them do a sit and a down and a stay, and I make up their food and I take a little while doing it. So they have to be very patient, and I'm working on their good manners while I'm making their food, which, most dogs are like this, but golden retrievers are really all about food.
Yeah.
So, and then I do a little blessing over it, a little funny blessing, a little prayer over their food. And I put the food down. I make them wait till I give them permission. And it's turned into this beautiful experience twice a day where my dogs and I feel closer. They get to use, it's an enrichment time for them. And then I feel like when you turn a routine into a ritual, it's like you are bringing that divine in you, like your spirituality out into something, and you're making it fun and playful, and you're aware of what you're doing and where you are, and it grounds you in the present moment.
I love that.
I feel like that brings up a lot of these happy moments that add it all together, bring more happiness to your day.
Yeah. And plus I think, my son-in-law and I were talking last night about this. Life is going to happen. It's happening. Everything you're creating, whether you think you're creating or not, right? So by not creating, you're creating. And so when we just allow our days to just keep happening and keep happening, that's when you get stuck in this just mundane existence of life. And when you can wake up each day with an intention, and it sounds like, creating a ritual, that's an intention, because you have to actually set some time aside and call the dogs in and, laugh a little bit and bring it up to have that, like you said, spiritual, it's like a spiritual experience because you're actually just like living in that moment every morning. So my daughter, her husband, and grandbabies have been here for 3 months, and their house is almost done. So they're moving out, and I'm kind of sad because every morning, 8 a.m., my door creaks open and there's 2 little fuzzy head babies in their pajamas that just come and jump in bed with me. And I have kind of made that a ritual. So yesterday I was on the phone, it was in the morning, and I hear them outside the door, and they're 4 and 2. And the 4-year-old was telling the 2-year-old, "Oh, I think Mimi's working. Let's go." And so I hear them like at my door and then running off. So I immediately like got off the call. I run into their room. I'm like, "Hey, how come you guys didn't come in?" And I realized that has become a really special part of my day during this time that we're all here. And yeah, I could be frustrated because they're interrupting work or they're interrupting a phone call, but I really have I just stop everything and I listen to them tell me. The 4-year-old has to talk my ear off and tell me these stories. And it's just so fun to be in that moment. And so I think that's super important. And the other thing is when you talk about gratitude and that every day you come up with 3 things, I think just doing that, you are going about your day, your previous day, looking for things to be grateful for, right? And even in hard days, it's like, oh, I have to come up tomorrow with 3 things. So I've really got to look for the silver lining in this. And I think that is such a powerful, I usually tell my clients to come up with 10 things. So I think 3 things is so doable. And it really starts to get you in this positive mindset of starting to look for the positive. Because when people are in that victimhood, I always say you can find evidence in whatever you want to find evidence in. So if you're living in that state of always looking for somebody that's doing you wrong or something that, the 4-year-old said the morning, "Today's a bad day," because her little splash pad didn't come on right away or something. And I was like, how funny that we do that sometimes. Like we take a moment and we want to turn it into a really bad day. And I think that just having that ritual of looking for things to be grateful for every day, it puts you in that mindset because you're looking for evidence. And it's amazing how much you can find out there. Even in a day that we would normally call bad, what positive things that you can find out there when you're actually searching for it. So I love that. I think that's such a great, I love the word ritual over routine, because routine really does sound kind of boring. And so I think it's a great ritual to start your day with even 3 things. I think that's such a great thing that you do every single day.
And I think too, what I found from it is that when you come from that space of so much gratitude, it's as if you're resonating in abundance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at what I have. Look at how much I have.
Yes.
Look at even being thankful for the thing that you feel like you don't have, but that you want. Yes. Having a sense of gratitude for that, the fact that you're on a path towards it, that you're aware enough to want it, that filling yourself up with gratitude for that, it has, in my experience, then allowed me to resonate at this different frequency. And then to your point about what you see, you get more of, right? So the universe is matching you. So if you're coming from the space of, I'm so grateful and I have this abundance of things I'm thankful for, the law of attraction is like, you're going to get more of that. Then you're going to start seeing more of that. It's like, is it the chicken or the egg? I don't know, but it's true. It happens and it works
every time. And I think that, like you say, just being aware of it and having the knowledge that you get to create your life, that you're in charge of your own happiness, is such a blessing. And it's such a powerful tool to use for people that maybe have spent their life thinking that life just wasn't fair and it was hard on them. Like to be able to say, wait a minute, I had part in creating that. And now what do I want to create going forward? That's exciting to think that you can create whatever you want, no matter where you are in life. I know that I've been in really bad situations and been able to crawl myself out with that attitude of, I'm going to create what it is, whatever I want, and putting it out there. So I love that. I wanted to ask you, is there anything in your life or looking back that you regret or would choose to do over again?
So, besides like, the obvious couple of bad hairstyle choices
Yeah.
or something.
Story of my life.
So I was thinking about that, and I thought, I guess there's a part of me that for years wished I had started writing sooner.
Hmm.
But then I realized as I was thinking through that that's not actually the truth or accurate, because I couldn't be where I am now in the space that I am and be the authentic soul that I feel like I am right now and have that transparency of what I've been through. I wouldn't have been there 10 years ago or 4 years ago. It's like this constant evolution of, I truly believe that everything may not happen for the best, but somehow it shifts you, pivots you. And as long as your perspective on it is a good one and a positive one, and you're full of awareness about it, then I think things are going to evolve and fold out in front of you at the time they're meant to, when you have the wisdom to do with them what you should or you're meant to do. Yeah.
So tell us about your book, and is it out yet?
It is not. I'm still
Okay.
searching for a home for it, but I spent over 2 years on it, and I worked with a couple of great editors who helped me developmentally kind of, figure out the flow. I just felt like it was, it's kind of a lot. And when it's your own story, as you know, to sit down and kind of put it down. But I worked really hard on it, and I didn't hold anything back, and I'm really proud of it.
Oh, I'm excited.
Thank you. And right now I'm just still searching for a home. I'm just starting that journey now. So hopefully something will happen the next, 6 to 12 months on it. The book industry is very slow.
We can collaborate on that. So,
okay.
And then so are you helping individuals? Do you have a program? Are you open to people contacting you to be able to maybe tap into your story because it's like theirs and be able to connect with you?
Yes, I'm always happy for people to contact me. So I have my website, which they can find me through carousing.com, but it's a play on my name, so it's spelled a little different. It's Karousing. I'm also on Instagram under Karena Kilcoyne, and I'm on Facebook. So I'm all over the place, and it's very easy. Also on my website, there's 2 or 3 different places, very easily seen, where they can sign up to get my newsletters, which I send out every 2 weeks. And also they can use that email address to email me directly any questions or things that, they're going through their own journey and they'd like to chat with me about it. I'm always willing to lend a hand.
Thank you so much. You are beautiful. And I know that you've been through so much and you've come through, and you are an inspiration to people. So I'm super grateful that you took your time to be here today. And I want to have you back when your book's out so that we can promote that, because I think that's going to be an amazing book. And I just want to thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. You're beautiful inside and out too. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're sweet. Okay. I will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Shirley.
Thanks so much for listening to the Get What You Want podcast. If you loved it, please subscribe, share it with others, and leave me a review on Apple Podcast. You can also visit me on my website at www.getwhatyouwantguru.com. Would love to hear from you. Now go create.